Good afternoon, everybody. It's Saturday, February 22nd, 2025, and as promised, I'm going to discuss what is a non-investigative subject. You know, like you and I, non-investigative subjects on the watch list. I hope you enjoy this little mini painting, watch listed for speaking the truth. It doesn't matter why you're watch listed. I mean, if they want to put you on a list, they're going to put you on the list. But please remember to hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel grow and get the message out there. As you can see, my phone is vibrating a little bit. A non-investigative subject, NIS, on the terrorist watch list refers to an individual who is listed in the terrorist screening database, TSDB, but is not actively being investigated by law enforcement or intelligence agencies. So you have to wonder, like, why are you on a list? You're non-investigative. Why are they collecting these names, right? So why are they not investigated? One, a lack of sufficient evidence. You know, it takes 13, 15, 25 years to gather the evidence, you know. The person may have some connections or associations that raise suspicion, but not enough to warrant an active investigation. Well, I find that really ludicrous because, you know, particularly when you're working or have your own business, you're going to come in contact with a lot of individuals across the country that are here from other countries. You know, they're relocated here. So what does my having a conversation with somebody who may have moved here from another country or whose family may have anything to do with raising suspicion about my connections? And whose business is it who I associate with? And the other side of that is, just because you associate with somebody, either in a business, romantic, personal relationship, it doesn't mean that you know everything about them. You don't know their family history. You don't know a lot of things about their history, and you're not supposed to for the most part. So the fact that somebody is investigated and placed on a list because of your associations that may raise suspicion, but not enough to warrant an investigation, is a gross invasion of privacy. Number two, foreign intelligence sharing. Some names come from foreign partners, and while they're flagged for awareness, U.S. agencies may not have jurisdiction or direct cause to investigate them. Number three, past or closed investigations. Some individuals may have been previously investigated, but were not deemed a threat, leading to their classification as non-investigative subject, while keeping them on the list for awareness. And grants. That's the only reason they keep you on the list. They keep you on the list to get money. It's all about the money. It's all about the harassment. It's all about the asset stripping. They keep you on the list for their predictive policing. They have to predict whether or not you're going to commit a crime while they're harassing and torturing you, right? Of course, you know, it doesn't say that here. Number four, monitoring travel only. Some names are on the list. They exist only for tracking movement, like alerts that they attempted to board flights or enter the U.S. without an active criminal investigation. Sort of like the Tulsi Gabbard. She was on the Quiet Skies list, and she would be searched and detained indefinitely while they were searching her luggage and her husband's luggage, etc. Why? U.S. Marshals, our tax dollars hard at work. It's called job security. We don't have enough crime, so they have to bring criminals into the country, create it by harassing people to the point where they're going to act out and respond. Associations rather than direct involvement. So some individuals may be loosely connected to a known terrorist, but do not engage in criminal activity themselves. Well, yes, I would say that for the most part, most of my neighbors are known terrorists. I don't engage in the criminal activity, but they do. So I have a very loose connection to my neighbors because they are terrorists. So because they are terrorists, I am loosely connected to them. And essentially, a non-investigative subject is flagged for awareness. Awareness not active law enforcement action. However, if new intelligence emerges, they could become an active investigative subject. So they're always watching you to harass you, pick on you, stalk you, see what you're doing, so that they can instigate trouble and then cause a problem for you. They want you to be an active investigative subject. So someone is added to the watch list. Basically, an individual can be placed on the terror screening database through a process involving multiple agencies and intelligence sources. So here's how it typically happens. And then I'm going to go into how the ACLU investigated this. You can be nominated by an agency, such as the FBI, CIA, NSA, DOD, DHS, and even foreign intelligence services submit names of suspected individuals. The basis for nomination may include association with known terrorists. Like, how would you and I know? Let's say we're doing business with somebody. How would we know if they are a known terrorist? And what actually is a terrorist? Because I'll tell you, I mean, since I've been in this quote-unquote program, I haven't seen any arrested, or until Trump came in, we haven't had any of them deported. Okay, so we are living amongst them, but nothing's ever been done about it, right? They choose to follow non-investigative subjects because we are the calm, quiet type that don't cause trouble. It's an experiment. It's a social experiment. So another basis for nomination may include communications with flagged individuals. So if you talk with somebody who's flagged, you too may be nominated by an agency. I don't know, what is a flagged individual? Travel to conflict zones. I don't know, these days almost everywhere you travel is a conflict zone. Suspicious financial transactions or online activity. Well, I'm sure every one of us has at one time or another had our credit cards been hacked, and I have had suspicious activity on my credit cards that I had to report as being hacked. This happened in New Jersey. It's happened to a lot of people. So how does that suspicious financial transaction and online activity, it's none of your damn business what I buy or what I do online. It's none of your business. Number 2, review by the National Counterterrorism Center, NCTC. The NCTC, if the individual has international ties, like even if you make a phone call to Canada, or the FBI for domestic cases, reviews the nomination, you too could be placed on a list. You could be nominated just for talking to somebody in another country. Imagine? They determine if the person meets the reasonable suspicion standard, meaning there is articulable intelligence linking them to terrorism. Oh, this is just a crock of BS, guys. And the information is credible and verifiable. Like, who? Credible and verifiable, but it doesn't require any proof. Is this amazing? Listen to this. The information is credible and verifiable, but does not require proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is really wrong. Credible? Well, anybody could make anything up that sounds credible. You know, like those fusion center operatives that go into your communities and slander you, defame you. And it sounds credible to moronic neighbors who are so gullible and sheep and will believe anything that they're told. So it sounds credible. Verifiable? How are they going to verify something? I haven't heard. Have you? Have you heard how they go about verifying that that we are linked to terrorism? How have they gone about verifying it? Number 3, approval by the terror screening database, TSC. If approved, the individual is added to the TSDB and categorized based on the level of risk. So all you need is a couple of people who are envious and jealous, want to get rid of you, are hateful, to nominate you. They know somebody in the right places, and they'll just categorize you based upon their hatred of you, whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish, based upon their hatred or fear or envy or jealousy. Then there's the high threat individuals. They may also be placed on the no-fly list or selectee list. So the selectee list, they're subject to enhanced screenings. Then there's the watch list dissemination. The terror screening database is shared with the TSA for airport security, CBP for border security, the FBI and local law enforcement for domestic encounters, and the State Department for visa applications. How do you ever get removed from the watch list? Well, from what I understand, you never get off, even when you die. You never get off. But this is what ChatGPT says, okay? There are 4 main ways an individual can be removed from the TSDB. A reevaluation and error correction. Okay, I'm just going to say something here. It's as if a person was added due to mistaken identity or weak intelligence. Their case may be reviewed and removed upon re-examination, and this can happen due to appeals, new intelligence, or legal challenges. Well, I'm going to tell you that probably never happens unless you have a really good lawyer, and that lawyer is not easily bribed or coerced. They're not going to change any kind of mistaken identity. I watch those cop auditor videos all the time. You have no idea how many people are arrested due to mistaken identity. It's off the charts, unbelievable. So you think they're going to remove you from the watch list for that reason? I think not. Number 2, the lack of continued threat. Well, they're just going to make something up anyway. If intelligence agencies determine that the individual no longer poses a risk or has had no suspicious activity for an extended period, they may be removed. Well, I'm going to say that will probably never happen. I've been on the list at least 13 years. Half of that time, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't pose a risk to anyone. I didn't watch TV. I was going to school, working at a gym, taking care of my daughter and the house and cats. But they put you on the list because they want to asset strip you also, discredit you and stuff. What kind of suspicious activity? Feeding cats. Successful legal challenge. This is the only way here. Number 3, individuals can file redress complaints through the Department of Homeland Security Traveler Redress Inquiry Program if they believe they were wrongfully placed on the list. That's the only way that I know that you can get off the list, is when you know that you have been declined to board a plane or anything like that, because obviously that becomes very obvious to you. And there is that complaint that you can file to get your name off the no-fly list. However, the government here, this is the key. However, the government does not confirm or deny whether someone's on the list, making the legal challenges difficult. So they're not going to tell you if you're on or off the list. You just intuitively know. So, and because of that, even hiring an attorney's going to say, okay, well, how do we know you're on the list if they won't disclose that you are? And then, of course, your argument is, well, you go to the sheriff's department, they won't take photos of your vandalism. They won't investigate who unalived an animal on your property. It becomes very clear over time that the sheriff's department and their deputies aren't performing investigations. It's obvious. It becomes very obvious that you're on some list, that you're on a blacklist, especially when they go behind your back to your realtors to tell them to not sell your property. It becomes incredibly obvious while they're vandalizing your property. So there are a lot of issues and controversies with the watch list process. There's lack of transparency. Individuals usually don't know they're on a list unless they face issues traveling or interacting with law enforcement. And it's difficult to challenge because the government won't acknowledge the list status, and therefore appeals can be challenging. There are also false positives and errors. Innocent people have been mistakenly placed on the list due to similar names or weak intelligence. Then there's civil liberties concerns. Some argue that the process lacks due process protections, which I agree. leading to wrongful restrictions on travel, employment, and privacy. So ChatGPT says, would you like more details on specific legal cases where people have challenged their placement on the list? They did give me a whole bunch of those. I did not post those here. They were listed very differently. But I wanted to say that this is how the watch list is used. Border and travel security. Agencies like the TSA, TCB, Customs and Border Patrol use the list to screen individuals at airports and border crossings. If a non-investigative subject attempts to board a plane or cross the border, it triggers a flag for officials to take a secondary screening or further checks. And that's been done to me, where I've had to go through the screening thing a couple of times, even with my shoes and socks off, telling me that they found something like metal on my ankle. Yeah. This is a good way to know whether or not you're implanted somewhere. Go on a trip, go through the screener, and whatever it is that's implanted will show up on their screen. Law enforcement encounters. If a person on the watch list is pulled over or arrested by police, an alert is sent to the FBI or other intelligence agencies for further assessment. And however, if they are NIS, non-investigative subjects, law enforcement is typically instructed to not take action beyond normal procedures unless additional cause arises. Visa and immigration screening. U.S. agencies such as the State Department use the list to deny visas or refugee applications for individuals with flagged affiliations. Number 4, surveillance and intelligence gathering. Though not actively investigated, non-investigative individuals may be monitored indirectly, especially in cases where they associate with known threats. Well, basically, I'm going to tell you what a non-investigative subject is. You are a test subject. You are a test subject. You're being microwaved and radiated and watched so they can see the effects of their research experiments, covert experiments upon you. Why keep non-investigative subjects on the list? Even if there's no active investigation, keeping individuals flagged ensures that authorities stay informed of their movements and interactions. Like, why? Why is that important? Who needs to know what I'm doing, what I'm saying, who I'm associating with? And if new intelligence emerges, their status can be upgraded to an investigative subject. Oh, like what new intelligence? Like, oh my goodness, she's trying to sell her place and we're going to lose our money. Some non-investigative subject entries exist purely for intelligence sharing with allied countries. Like they want to steal your intellectual property. They want to map your brain and traffic you. You know, like the traffic lights. Some of the concerns and controversy are false positives. Some innocent people are mistakenly added and face travel restrictions or other issues. There's the lack of transparency. And the ACLU specifically states this in their Trapped in a Black Box, Growing Terrorism, Watchlisting, and Everyday Policing, dated 2016. You can find online and on my channel. The lack of transparency. So individuals are often unaware that they're on a list and have little recourse to challenge it. The civil liberties concerns are critics argue that it can lead to profiling and privacy investigations without due process. And that is absolutely the truth about that. So let me get this document that I want to read to you here. So now I'm going to the ACLU Trapped in a Black Box. The ACLU obtained information from the FBI about its, and let me just read this up here. In 2016, let me just scroll down here. Okay, so it's called Known or Suspected Terrorist. It's KST. Then the National Crime Information Center, NCIC. Then there's the Violent Gangs and Terrorist Organizations File, VGTOF. Okay, so you've got the KST, known or suspected terrorists, the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, and the Violent Gangs and Terrorist Organizations file, VGTOF. Okay, so we're going to scroll down here. I've already done this on my channel. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here and name some things that are really important. So the number of individuals tracked has increased exponentially from over 13,000 entries in 2003. It ballooned to 272,198 entries in 2008. And the KSD is likely far larger today. Of course it is. We're 2025. Such dramatic growth does not reflect a commensurate increase in terrorist activity inside the U.S. during that time. In fact, terrorist activity in the United States since 2001 has been historically low and declining. Exactly. So they had to create it for their job security. Otherwise, all these coppers would be out of job. We don't need half of these people. Right? Do we need these people? No, we really don't. Do we need all of these agencies? Do we need fusion centers? No, we do not need all of these agencies. We're wasting money. The documents raise serious questions about the accuracy of many of the records in the VGTOF and KST file. The FOIA documents indicate that the FBI long lacked sufficient safeguards for new entries to the file, increasing the risk that innocent individuals would be placed in it and retained there indefinitely. Although the process has become more centralized over time, the current system lacks adequate substantive oversight. There is no oversight for existing entries and utilizes a low reasonable suspicion evidentiary standard that is subject to numerous exceptions. The primary purpose of the VGTOF and KST file, it's not for law enforcement. It's but for surveillance and tracking individuals for indefinite periods of time. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down more. The FBI and other government agencies use silent hits, quote unquote, to track encounters with watchlisted people without alerting frontline law enforcement officers. And during these encounters, the FBI receives an automatic notification of the encounter, while the frontline officer's search of the individual's name and biometric information yields no indication of the individual's watchlisted status. You hear that? So that means when I called the Sheriff's Department and Deputy Collins was here and removed the dead animals from my property, the FBI received an automatic notification of that encounter. So they already knew what happened on my property. They already knew. So each time I reported some horrific stuff that happened on my property, the FBI was already notified. And that's why they suck, because they do nothing. Okay? So redress for individuals who are erroneously placed on the KST file is essentially non-existent. The FBI's long-standing policy is neither to confirm or deny that an individual is on the terrorism watch list, and unlike those on the no-fly list or the selectee list, like Tulsi Gabbard, whose status on a watch list becomes clear when they're prevented from boarding a flight or are continually subjected to additional screening, those on the KST file are unlikely to receive such de facto notice. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll a little bit more. Disseminating potentially erroneous, inaccurate, and outdated information on an ever-expanding population of watch-listed individuals to hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officers nationwide stigmatizes those individuals as potential terrorists and exposes them to a heightened risk of unwarranted scrutiny or investigation by police. Additionally, leaked documents show that American Muslim communities were disproportionately watchlisted, further eroding those communities' trust in law enforcement. And finally, a sprawling database with a low exception-ridden standard for inclusion is not an effective one. In attempting to track so many individuals, law enforcement resources are diverted from actual security threats. I've been saying that for years. Congress and the executive branch should institute much-needed reforms to address these concerns. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. I'm going to scroll down because I've got a couple of important things to read from here. From 2003 to 2008, the list grew nearly 2,000%. 2,000%. Not like 10%, 40%, 50%, even 100%. 2,000%. The total number of records continuously increased in this period, except for one brief decline in 2006. The vast majority of records were related to suspected international terrorism and were processed through the NCTC and the terror screening database. Military detainee entries were nominated by the FBI legal attaches increased steadily from 2003 to 2008. So all of the lists have increased. All of them. I'm just going to keep scrolling. In addition to the steady and high rate of increase, the total number of records was also characterized by large fluctuations. In May 2005, it spiked to more than $130,000. Not dollars, 130,000, only to decrease again the previous levels the following month. Some records were deleted. There was a major cleanup initiative, which had deleted 7,264 records. But then it was modified and updated to 113,000 records. And then they added an additional 12,474 that had previously been rejected. It's unclear how and why the number decreased and then increased. They don't tell you why. So let me keep scrolling here. Keep scrolling. There was a page that I wanted to read. I think it was page 10 here. 1 second. Okay, no, I just read that. 1 second, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. It actually turned out to be like in the 30s and the 40s today. There was one other thing about the silent hit. Oh, here. There were sets of records labeled as unknown and unidentifiable. It illustrates the extent to which the VGTOF database potentially contains flawed records. Unknown, or the non-silent hit records, are those that are not coded. They're not coded as either domestic or international because the information is unknown. I think those are those secret records, guys. They don't want anybody to know about those records. Those are probably kept in a separate folder. Another classification is unable to identify, the meaning of which is unclear from the documents. And now this number of unable to identify records, initially in the hundreds in 2006, it increased more than tenfold in August of 2006, hitting a peak of 2,500 records. It's just insane. Absolutely insane. So I'm going to tell you about the nominations, about the criteria for inclusion in the watch list have become less concrete and less specific. What has been revealed regarding current practices suggests haphazard applications of vague standards to a variety of entries without regular oversight. During the initial nomination and review process, it's likely that some entries that did not meet the threshold nomination criteria were nevertheless entered into the watch list anyway, Even if they didn't meet the criteria, they were loaded on the list. So I'm going to end here. We can go over this process another time, but I look forward to questions and comments down below. If you have any information on the watch list, leave it down below. You can also email me at alternativehomesteading@gmail.com, and I look forward to hearing from you guys soon. Please remember to hit the thumbs up